I've been excited to have you on for a while, and you're on my top 5 list, mate, of people to interview. So I'm so glad and appreciative that you made the time today to be with me.
Mate, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to make a list at all, to be honest. So, yeah, it's very kind words, but can't wait to have a chat.
Yeah. Hey, so Ali, just tell
Chappy
us.
chat.
Yeah, chappy chat, chappy chat. Tell us where you're currently based, and I guess the form of chaplaincy that you are currently involved in.
Yeah, for sure. I'm currently at Sanitarium Australia as the corporate chaplain there. So I oversee all the areas, all our sites in Australia. And we have a New Zealand chaplain as well, Kira Bullock. She oversees that, and then we work together as a team, also with Gilbert Kanji, as kind of overseeing the whole big picture about pastoral care, looking out for the people.
So that, like for me, Elliot, that is a big profile. When you say corporate Australia, obviously Sanitarium, everyone knows Weet-Bix. Shout out to Weet-Bix.
Yeah.
My kids have it all the time. Not saying I want free Weet-Bix. Maybe they can sponsor this podcast. Who knows? But anyway, that's a big responsibility, right? Are there chaplains in different various sanitarium sites around Australia, or are you it and you just have to try and get to those places?
Yeah, so I'm it for Australia, and when travel was a thing that we could all do, I was pretty frequently traveling. So we've got a site in Brisbane, we've got a site in Western Australia in Carmel, we've got a couple of sites around the Central Coast, and then we've got sales reps across the entire country as well. So yeah, there's a lot of places around Australia. But yeah, when I could travel and it was a thing, yeah, it was me for that. And before that, it was one chaplain for Australia and New Zealand. So they've expanded it, they've grown it to be able to help us get in touch with our people.
Yeah. And prior to you being just the Australian chaplain for Sanitarium, was there someone prior to you, or was your role brand new?
No, there definitely were chaplains before me, but it was one chaplain in the position for the entire Australia and New Zealand. And Sanitarium Group is actually, we have people in England, we have people in India, so we have America. It's not even just Australia and New Zealand. So we actually, between the three of us, try and connect. We have China as well, so it's even bigger than Australasia.
So walk me through, Elia, what it looks like to be, I guess, chaplain for Australia Sanitarium. And obviously you're saying you work with the your version of in New Zealand with Kira.
Yeah.
How do you oversee all these places? And do you have a particular curriculum, or is it you have to dial in and do sort of devotionals for everyone? Like I'm really interested to know how you minister to all these different places.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ray. So I guess Life Matters is a brand of, I guess, what they would have called worship probably 20 years ago. And it's like a 15-minute segment where we talk about life and things that matter. And so traditionally you would have, so at Kurumbong, we have our scientists up there and they might have it once a week. Head office might have it once a day. It's a bit harder for the factory to have it because they're all on shifts, so it looks different there. We have LHF just down the road in Berkeley Vale. Once a month, I'd rock up to their team meeting. Western Australia, I'd probably get there to our Carmel site maybe 3-4 times a year and hang out with them on the Friday as a team because they can do that. Brisbane, we'd be there 6 to 8 times a year. They might have a Life Matters. So they started having it once a week. So just a site to how it would was there. And then you have champions that work up there that help organize speakers to speak in the different places.
Man, sounds like a busy schedule, but I can imagine you're able to focus it all on obviously that particular curriculum. How did was it hard to pitch the idea to the CEO of Sanitarium? Because obviously, with all decisions sort of comes from the top or that team. Do you have a seat at that table and say, hey, this is the idea, we're going to try and roll this out, this is how I'm going to be effective across many sanitariums?
I can't take credit for that. So this was something that was in place before I arrived.
Okay.
And Life Matters, the brand, was there before it would happen organically or not on various sites, depending on, people that had a bit of time to help it out in that. So we've literally adopted what was there, but then we've also expanded our flavor to with the curriculum like you talked about. So RE is our theme for this year. We've got a whole bunch of RE words that we're getting our people to talk about. But look, that's probably the most visible part of the chaplaincy role. That's just one thing. There's heaps of other things that we do, but that would be, the company goes, we want to give you 15 minutes to reflect on life and things that matter,
Okay.
spiritual things of depth, relevance, meaning.
And so in that journey of being able to um, expand on the role, as you say, what are some things that you've been proud of that you've sort of, since you've started, that you've sort of left your footprint in, and you're trying to build?
Yeah, I mean, it's always great, hey, when someone paves a trail before you, and I like the word build because there was a lot of good things in place. Probably one thing that we tried was, like I mentioned, it is hard with a factory at Berkeley Vale, and I guess Auckland as well, and all our factories, Brisbane, Perth, and particularly at Berkeley Vale, if it's 24 hours a day, except for Saturday, um, it's hard with shift change over time. So, and we can't really do a Life Matters there. But I pitched, what if we built like a beverage cart that
Okay.
during the shift changeover times, I could be at the door making, hot chocolates and things, and just chatting to the people on the way in, chatting to the people that are leaving. And then that way, that was a touch point of, because at the end of the day, chaplaincy is relationships. And, we were talking
Right.
offline, Ray, about you and your new role, building relationships. And those things are a platform to build the relationship, to build the trust, to then be able to walk with the people in authenticity and in an organic way.
You're a school chaplain for how long again, Elliot?
It was about 17 years. Yeah.
So 17 years, you were a high school and primary school chaplain. I know that
Yeah.
for sure. And you were involved in a campus church as well. How has those 17 years in high school chaplaincy or school chaplaincy helped you in your current role as a corporate chaplain?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think, look, I was pretty green when I got out. I might have been, 24 when I was at school, and I was actually had a teaching load as well as chaplain for the high and the primary when the school was a bit smaller, and then it grew. And for me, it was all, I had opportunities. I was in the deep end a lot. There wasn't a lot of chaplains to my knowledge in schools at that time. It was at the beginning of the evolution of it all, but having leadership, having a boss that trusted you to give it a go. You'd pitch something, and he'd be like, "Yep, give it a crack." If he saw merit in it, and that kind of leadership helped us create. Done before. I'm not musically talented as much as I love music, but I started doing some improv with some of the kids at school, and we'd take them to other schools and minister to them there. So there was an abundance of being able to work with people and young people. That was a thing that I really love and treasure, because you see kids grow and evolve and struggle, and then sometimes, when most of the time when they make it through, you see them flourish, and it's such a joy. So to be able to take all that now into Sanitarium has been awesome. And the real funny thing is, some of the kids that that I might have dealt with before, their parents were working at Sanitarium, and so we started doing things at Sanitarium to support the employees and their families. So we started doing a
Wow.
kids' day out, and a few things like that. So it's kind of looped back into, even though I've left school, we've been doing some initiatives that have been amazing to help support families at Sanitarium Group.
Yeah, so with that in mind, then with the families, because obviously when I think chaplaincy, you're serving the people that you're responsible for. So at school,
Yeah.
students and staff, for you at work, obviously whoever the workers are. But what made the pivot to go, well, let's now focus as well as on families? Or was it by accident you fell upon that idea? Was it an impression? Was it part of the planning, strategic planning?
It was definitely part of the planning. It started with a question.
Okay.
If if the majority of, hang on, it started with a question. How can we be practical in chaplaincy to serve the people? Like, what does it
Right.
look like to
Right.
actually support people? Because in a church role, it might be on a church program, it might be running a Friday night program, it might be doing a food train. But for employees, what can we do? What are the pressure points that our employees go through? And how do we respond from a chaplaincy point of view to support that? And one of the things that we thought about was like, so some people at the factory will work, they'll do night shift, then they'll leave, their partner will come to do day shift with the kids in the car, that partner will get in the car, drive
Wow.
home, take them to school. And so we're like, time is really important. So we pitched, what if we did a kids' day out where we told the employees, we want to take your kids out to Luna Park and to Taronga Zoo in Sydney for a day. We'll sponsor it. We'll take them in. If you want to come, if you get permission from your manager to come and join us for the day. And we had, over 140 kids and a bunch of staff from the factory and head office and Life Health Foods and Kurumong, and we had an amazing day. And so we're like, and then the feedback we got from that was like, you know what, I got to spend time with my kid during the day, the company they do for us. And then we decided to pitch something even bigger after that. But that's, the question, how can we be relevant? How do we respond to a needs? I can say, this is what I think people need, but, if that's just because I've done it before and try and roll it out, is it going to hit the mark? What are the
Yeah.
pressure points?
Is that how you measure your success in your role? Because I know that as you're employed, so people from the top or from where we're going, well, how do we know Elia is successful, or the chaplaincy team, Australia, South Pacific, around the world is successful? Is it by how many people turn up to the or rock up to the families? Is it a matter of how much feedback we get? Like, what does success look like for you in your role?
Yeah, another great question, and particularly with spirituality, Ray, as it's
Yeah.
really hard to measure. Okay, so I can pray for you, or I could do a Bible study with you, and I could go, well, that's immeasurable because we sat down and we did that together. But did it impact your life? Have you shifted,
Yeah.
in your growth? I don't know. Like, because would I ask the question? It's a really good question, and one that we constantly think about it. But I guess for us, life matters engagement. So we've been really intentional about getting people that wouldn't normally present but are part of the company to present. And they might go, you know what, I'm not spiritual. And we're like, you know what, everyone is spiritual, and you don't have to make it religious if you don't want to in your talk, but pick an RE word, for example, and speak into it. And I tell you, when the new person that may not have ever done it, they may not consider themselves deeply spiritual, they deliver. It comes with such heart and such joy and such challenge, and all their peers come and they watch them present, and it's just this thing, and you see people get moved, and you see the Holy Spirit doing amazing things, regardless of what labels you might want to put on it. So attendance, okay, would be one measurable.
Sure.
140 kids that come to the thing, and how many parents were engaged, that's immeasurable. At the moment, we're all online for our Life Matters stuff. So we do a Monday live, Life Matters. Tuesday, we do like a Q&A with someone from the business. Wednesday is a guest presenter. Thursday is a podcast, and so forth. And so we're tracking the engagement there to see, how we're doing with trends. So yeah, they're kind of the areas. Oh, and then feedback. So any feedback that we get, thank you so much. It really helps. We really appreciate that. We just make a whole list of the feedback, and then traveling with people through crisis, there's been a lot of deep
Yes.
waters that people have
Yeah.
gone through in the last little while, and that's a whole nother part of the chaplaincy as well. And then there's a whole raft of things that we do there to support our people.
Yeah. Tell me what have you learned from the workers at Sanitarium? So from admin, obviously, like there's the office people, and then you have, it's not so much a hierarchy, but different levels. Like, and then you come down all the way to those who work in the factory. What have been some of your learnings from the different types of people that you trying to connect with? Do they have similar needs? Do they have different needs because of where they're placed in the factory or in the business?
definitely different needs, depending on, where they are situated. Our leaders have different needs, because they're managing people. Probably the big thing that I've learnt is that culture is so important. And Sanitarium is really intentional about having what they call a blue culture, which is blue behaviors that are constructive. And if you have, if there's an issue to talk about it, and not being passive or not being aggressive, or not, there's all these lists of, and they champion these values, and they champion these things, and they have a thing called the SOSA Award, and it's the Spirit of Sanitarium Award. So people that display the values of the company, they can get nominated by their peers every month. And then at the end of the year, they do this massive award thing. And if you are a champion in your site, you get to go on a charity overseas to help, build bath toilets or dig
Wow.
wells in certain countries. And it's all this thing about, living the values, being in it together, serving others, pioneering today for tomorrow. And there's one other one that I'm trying to remember, but I can't.
That's all right. It'll come around. It'll
Yeah.
definitely come around. I think I've shared with you before. You may not remember, but I used to work for Sanitarium. Did you know that?
Yeah. Yep.
I used to
You've
make.
come and presented a few times for us as well.
Oh yes, yes, I have. I have. So thank you for the plug. But I remember when I was working. I think I was in my early 20s, and it was a factory up here in the Gold Coast, Yatla, and we were the makers of the Veggie Link sausages, like the vegetarian sausages, and there were other things that they made as well. But I was super proud to say that I was probably one of the best sausage makers in all of Australia and New Zealand. I put pride into that bad boy, thinking to
Yes.
myself, when someone eats this vegetarian sausage full of gluten flour, I want them to know that it was made with love. How do you instill? Obviously, that's just me. But how do you further instill that positive culture, or that workers are aiming towards a mission rather than going, it's just another mundane job. I'm clocking in, clocking out. How do you cultivate that type of mentality to go, here's our mission, and this is how it's going to serve a greater purpose? Or do you just go, maybe too hard basket, and we'll try and figure another way?
It's really interesting. Most of the people that I talk to, particularly when they're or they've been there, know that Sanitarium is bigger than just rocking up to do your job. They know that there's a bigger purpose, that we as a company strive to want to serve other people. They know it and they love it, because they will come possibly from somewhere else that hasn't had that, and they're like, I can't believe not only do my employees look after, but they care. There's a philanthropic, a service element, a Jesus care for the world element, that that people that come in for the first time, walk through the halls when we were working from work and walking through halls, like, you can feel it. You can feel there's something about this place. And I go back to, that's about, the culture, about serving others and being in it together. And all these values that we talk about aren't just slogans on a wall. They're lived out by people. And for some people, they may not in time that may not resonate with them, and they naturally might go somewhere else. But usually when you're in, man, you love it, you breathe it. And I love the whole values thing. For me, it just inspires me, and that reminds me every day why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I remember working at Sanitarium. Obviously, the chaplaincy role has grown so much when I was, in terms of what it serves, how it goes about affirming and encouraging people in their workplaces. And obviously, like, to be honest, the factory doesn't no longer exist, so it's all right. I'm not going to, throw people under the bus. But I can only imagine if this sort of existed in my workplace, it may have shifted the culture a bit. And so I just think it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. It's very encouraging to know that there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. And I think the question that I really want to lead to, do you prefer to be behind the scenes person, or the person that is in front, or does your role require you to do both? And so does it require you to do both, and which do you prefer?
Yeah, mate, you've got a bunch of good questions. I like them all. My role allows me to do both, and I'm happy to
Okay.
be a team player, and I'm happy to also be. I feel Kira, myself, and Gil. We're in a creative space. We're in an innovative
Yeah.
space where if we can come up with something that will affect change and support, our leadership is supportive. If they get the pitch. So that I enjoy being in the front of as a creative team. Doesn't mean that I have to personally be the man, but I love the brainstorm. I love the chat, and I
Yeah.
love to see the evolution of the idea.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'm happy to build relationships. Not for the most part, I love building relationships in the background, and that's one-on-ones, that's check-ins, that's my sweet spot. And then there's a Life
Yeah.
Matters piece I get to present, so that gives me a creative thing and a platform just to talk. And I've loved doing it in a corporate space because I've had to think,
Yeah.
not so much as a kid would think anymore. I've had to think, had to stretch my brain, which gets pretty sore sometimes. But I've loved that as a challenge. It's really pushed me, and yeah, it's good. Don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. It's fine. It does. Trust me. What does a thriving sanitarium worker look like for you? What would it look like a thriving sanitarium or someone who works at sanitarium look like for you?
someone who shows the values through their actions.
Yeah.
Someone who feels their manager has supported them and is there for them. Someone that is pushed to do their best. Someone that can experiment and stuff up, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually listing the things that I see in a lot of
Yeah.
people in our place that are thriving. And then someone who, when they're going through the depths of things, there's compassion there, there's understanding there. And then that's where I get the phone call going, hey, we need
Yeah.
to please look out for this person because they're going through this. When a manager contacts me about that, that's the greatest gift, because I'm like, they get it. They get that, there's a heart there that I don't even know how to describe, that is beyond just do your job.
And that is a fantastic way to sort of conclude our conversation today, because I just think if you can create or help create positive people with positive attitudes, we're really impacting our community, because we're sending them back to their houses and their homes with this positive mindset and growth mindset, like you said, with the Life Matters stuff. And so again, thank you again for making time for me to jump on. I know it's a busy schedule that you have, but again, appreciate your time. And look, last question: if there was any word of advice for chaplains who are in sort of a similar space, corporate space that you're in, maybe they've been serving, maybe they're a bit discouraged and need a bit of encouragement, or even someone like me just in the chaplaincy space, what would you say to us chaplains?
Just don't underestimate the power of showing up. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes we think we need the big line of advice or the grand gesture, or I don't know, something massive. But the thing that I come back to time and time again is just don't be afraid to show up. If it's a call, if it's a pat on the shoulder, if it's a smile, if it's a legitimate how you doing, just that. There is so much power in that. And I think, back to your measurable question,
Yep.
that's the one that I wish that we could measure, but
Yeah.
I know that you can't.
Yeah.
But I am certain that that is probably the highest measurable of all, is when you were there for someone. That tells them, when you were thinking of someone, there's no greater feeling you get as someone going, "Man, I can't believe my manager thought of me. I can't believe
Wow.
my chaplain remembered that I was having an operation," and whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh man, Elia, I've taken so much away from our time together, and like I said, you were in my top 5 people that I wanted to get on this podcast, just because you have a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just affirming you now. You have a wealth of knowledge and experience, but you just have a humble spirit, which I've just enjoyed working with you in some projects, but also seeing it from afar. So, thank you again, Elia, and we hope to catch everyone on the next episode.